One
Today's
minute,
webinar.
1 minute. Is the recording started?
Uh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I have started the recording.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Start.
Yes. Okay. A very warm welcome to everyone present here today. Today's webinar will be on conserving the threatened, and this will be talk one about snow leopards. My name is Dhruv Narayan, and I'll be the moderator for today. And before we begin, I would like to inform you all about the rules and guidelines. I would like to request all participants to please keep themselves on mute and their cameras turned off until the question and answer session, which will happen later on in the meeting. If you would wish, you can type your question out in the chat and I will ask Sir when the question and answer session begins. If you wish to speak your question and unmute, you can raise your hands on the meet and I will unmute you. Yes, with that, I would like to invite Dr. Jaishankar, coordinator of the NSA and head of the zoology department, St. Joseph's College, to say a few words about the initiatives NSA have taken so far this year.
Thank you, Dhruv. Good evening to all the participants of today's webinar. A special welcome to our resource person, Dr. Sawang Namgel, all the way joining us from Ladakh. And Sir is going to address on the series that the Natural Science Association has started on conserving the threatened. The first in line is on snow leopard. Coincidentally, we are going to start from the top of the map of India and proceed further. But all said in that good note, it is this concern that many of these species are threatened, which are considered to be presented in these series on conserving the threatened. Now, the initiatives that the government and the non-government organizations are taking is very, very crucial in conserving and identifying the threats of these threatened species. And that our students should be aware of the initiatives and also have a glimpse on the bioecology and behavior of such species. Hence, the Natural Science Association of the Department of Zoology under the School of Life Sciences, St. Joseph's College, decided to start this initiative, this webinar series on conserving the threatened. So the Natural Science Association has organized several such webinars in uh, tune with the initiatives that many such organizations are involved in to create awareness about the wildlife, also on topics that are close to the field of zoology. Thanks to all the body of the student volunteers of the Natural Science Association and the participants who have joined us today in this webinar. This is the first talk. All that I would wish is yes, the webinar should go on, but the list of threatened species should come down. That is what our concern should be in having these wonderful species on planet Earth. So, with that note, I would hand over the session to Mr. Nova Sangpo, one of the student coordinators of this webinar, to introduce our speaker for today. Over to Nova.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I'm Noah Zampur from School of Humanities, St. Joseph College, Bangalore. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker, Dr. Sewang Namgil, who is going to talk to us about conserving the threatened snow leopard. He is a wildlife biologist with a master's degree from the University of Tromsø, Norway, and a PhD in ecology from the Wageningen University in the Netherlands. He has worked as a biologist at the United States Geological Survey in San Francisco and Las Vegas. He has supervised over 30 master's and PhD students from the Netherlands, France, USA, and India. Currently, he is head of the Snow Leopard Conservation India Trust. He has published widely in reputed international journals and currently serve on the editorial boards of three international peer-reviewed journals such as Ecological Research and Pastoralism. He is a member of the IUCN Species Survival Commission and a member of the Goose Specialist Group. He served on the State Wildlife Board of the Union Territory of Ladakh. He has also served on the jury of Indian Responsible Tourism Award. He has delivered several public lectures, including the Nehru Memorial Lecture, Kailash Shankala Memorial Lectures, and the Virasat Lecture. For his conservation effort, he received the prestigious ICI-MOD Mountain Prize 2020 and the Disney Conservation Hero Award 2020. And now I request our resource person for the day to address.
Thanks so much, Noah. Thank you, Dr. Jay Shankar, and everyone else who are organizing this webinar. Am I audible, Noah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Just 1 minute. Okay. So, yeah, welcome everyone. Good evening. I'm very excited to be with you today from the northern tip of the country, as Dr. Jay Shankar mentioned. So I take that as an honor to start with Ladakh and the snow leopard because it needs all the attention, and I hope that I would be able to do justice. And by the end of the talk, and at some point, I will probably can influence you to visit the snow leopard areas in the mountains and spread the conservation message about the snow leopards. So yes, the snow leopard is a very beautiful creature up in the mountains. Until very recently, it was almost like a mythical creature, like the Himalayan Yeti or the North American Sasquatch. You hear about them, but you never see them. You know, that was the status that it had kind of taken until some years ago. But today, fortunately, we are seeing them more and more. And a lot of people ask me if that's because of an increase in the population of the snow leopard, or maybe due to people trying to find them more and more. So it is basically a combination of both, and also the population of snow leopard rebounding in certain areas where we have intervened with some of our conservation programs, which I will talk about later. So this talk is basically divided in two sections. In the first section, I would tell you about the snow leopard, what it is, where it occurs, what kind of issues, what kind of threats it faces, and the kind of work that we do to conserve the species to mitigate some of these threats in the Himalayas. So I don't know if any of you been to the mountains, or maybe somebody might have seen the snow leopard also, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a beautiful creature, as I said, that it's really elegant. And it is a big cat. It is something very similar to well, I mean, similar in the sense that physically, morphologically, it looks like a leopard. It's slightly smaller than a common leopard, actually, but because of the fluffiness of its coat and the hair, it looks slightly bigger than the common leopard. But if you look at the size, it's probably just slightly smaller than at the shoulder. It is about 2 feet high, and it's about 3 feet feet long, the body, and it has a tail which is almost the same size as the body, almost a little short of 3 feet. So it has a beautiful long bushy tail, that is it looks really nice, and the animal uses the tail to actually keep itself warm during the winter months when it's freezing up here, freezing temperatures. And it also uses the that long bushy tail to balance on treacherous mountain trails, cliffy areas, ledges, and all in the mountains. So it's really a beautiful creature that way. And color-wise, it is grayish, as you might have seen in pictures and all. And it has on its body, it has a kind of a pattern of rosettes, black rosettes and dots, black dots. So yeah, it is truly an mesmerizing creature, I would say. So if you talk about its habitat, where it occurs and where it lives in some of the most inaccessible areas, really rugged areas, cliffy areas, where sometimes it's very difficult for humans to get there. And so we do camera traps and all, about which I'll tell you a little bit later. And yeah, so it lives in some of the most inaccessible areas, really remote areas. And it prefers mostly rugged areas and rocky areas, not so much of the flat areas, which we have in high abundance, especially in the eastern part of Ladakh. So that's its habitat. If you look at its range, then it is distributed rather widely in Central Asia and South Asia, in 12 countries in these regions, Central and South Asia, including India, Nepal, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Mongolia, China, Russia, and all these countries, 12 Central and South Asian countries. And in all these countries, the maximum number of snow leopards currently are in China, followed by Mongolia and India and Pakistan and all these countries. So if you talk about the numbers of the snow leopards, then the global population is estimated at about 5,000 to 7,000 individuals. And of that, we in India, we have about 500 to 700 individuals. So these are very rough estimates, guesstimates, in fact, arrived after surveys in certain pockets of its habitat in its range. And we have in Ladakh, we have about 300 of those 5 to 700 species. So we have the maximum number of snow leopards in India occur in Ladakh. And we are very fortunate for that. And recently, we have been getting a lot of tourists to see the snow leopard, because as I said that until very recently, until a few years ago, it was almost like a mythical creature that people hear about it, but they hardly see it. But these days, people can come and see it in a rather short period of time, thanks to a group of enthusiastic youth that have really developed the skills to spot these animals in its craggy, rocky habitats. And basically, what you need is a search image. I mean, snow leopard is really known for its camouflage. You know, sometimes you might see, I mean, there might be a snow leopard at some 20, 30 meters away from you, but its camouflage is such yeah, perfect that you might not even notice it. You might not see it at even that close range because of its camouflage. So maybe I think it's pertinent to kind of tell you a very short story here about my first sighting of snow leopards. Till now, I have seen some 40 times in different parts of Ladakh. So my first sighting was inside the Hemis National Park in the year 2000. I was studying a species called the Tibetan argali, which is the largest wild sheep in the world. And when I was studying that, I was making a vegetation map of that of a place called Rumbak area inside the Hamis National Park, and I was scanning the slopes for different vegetation types. And when I was doing that, suddenly I saw two silhouettes of two animals through my binoculars at a very far distant ridge line. And first, I ignored them, thinking that there were two wolves, that they were kind of also in the same area, moving from place to place. But on a second thought, when I turned my set my spotting scope and looked at them through the spotting scope, there were two beautiful snow leopards, and I was really exhilarated the first time seeing it accidentally. At that time, I really didn't expect to see a snow leopard, and so I spent months, 2, 3, 4 months there without any expectation of seeing one. But when I saw that, through the spotting scope, I was really excited and so exhilarated. And so I wanted to get close to it. Beautiful creatures I had seen on pictures and all. Without losing any time, I started to walking up, running up in actually up the slope. At that time, I could walk really good. Run up some of those slopes actually, and I got very close to the place where they were sitting. But unfortunately, they were gone, and hoping against hope to catch a glimpse before they disappear in this rocky slopes. I just went out there, hiding myself behind some stony structures. We call them cairns. And so there were a few of them. I was just hiding behind them very carefully, coming out of them one by one. When I came out of the last stony structure, that cairn, uh, the snow leopards were just there at at a distance of. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. So there was something. So I thought maybe. Yeah. So they were at some 15 meters away from me, and it was first time. I was so close, and I was a little bit nervous and a bit. I was trembling and shaking a bit also, because although I knew that they are not dangerous, they're the one of the gentlest creatures around, but still, you never know. You have two very powerful carnivores right in front of you, and I was a little bit nervous. And I had a dilapidated camera, so I was with my shaky hands. I took a couple of pictures. And after that, a couple of friends also caught up with me. By then, one of these snow leopards walked to the right and one to walk to the left. And the one that walked to the left, we could see that individual for some 15 minutes or so. And then it's starting a little bit dark, although we could see things very clearly. It was drizzling a bit also. And yeah, so we were looking at it, and then suddenly it just disappeared there. There were no rocks, no bushes, nothing, and it just disappeared right there. So no wonder that it's called the ghost of the mountains. It's like an apparition. It appears and disappears at will. And so that's how well camouflaged the species, the animal is, and it's very confident about it. When walking in its rocky habitats, it really walks nonchalantly, without if you come across one at very close quarters, for example, that encounter, that did not show any sign of fear or anything. They didn't run away or anything. They just walked on its own pace, and that's how they are. They're cool cats. Basically, if you come across one at very close quarters, they don't show any swift reaction. They will just walk on their own pace. So yes, it's a beautiful creature, and I don't know if I would have time, but I just would like to mention that till that point, I held a lot of negative emotions, because I grew up in a small village where on the weekends I used to herd sheep and goats, and on the weekdays I used to go to school. And so when I was herding livestock then. I lost a few sheep and goats, some of the favorite goats, which provided us with a lot of milk, and I held up a lot of negative emotions until that point. I saw these creatures at close quarters, and I compare. I mean, literally, I just kind of all my negative emotions dissipated there itself. It is really that experience. It was a very powerful moment. So then onwards, I started looking at the ways of the snow leopard, how it lives, and all. Started understanding it, the way it lives in the mountains. Basically, they are. I realized that they are trying to eke out a living from the same uh, unyielding mountains and slopes as we are. So there's not much difference when it comes to. They are also trying to raise their young, and humans are also doing the same. And so yes, that really changed my perspective, and then onwards, there was no looking back. Just kind of kept on raising awareness among people that snow leopard is really a beautiful creature. Although, uh, as I will tell in the later section, the in the part that the activities, the actions that we are taking to really conserve the snow leopard. But basically, the snow leopard is notorious for getting inside livestock pens and killing at sometimes a lot of sheep and goats in a single night. In some of these poorly built, poorly designed livestock corrals, which are often designed to keep the livestock in, but not the predators out. So it's a very simple structure, stony structure without any roof. Sometimes the doors are very rickety and very flimsy doors. And no wonder the snow leopard jumps in, and it kills a lot of sheep and goats. Well, I mean, the snow leopard does not kill all of them. So what happens is, I said that these sheep and goats are really crammed in, uh, cheek to jowl, very close, in a close, small structure. So once the snow leopard jumps in, a lot of animals die because of suffocation, trampling, and that melee, complete chaos there. And so that's why a lot of animals die in such an incident. And so that is very difficult for a family to live with, especially families that are entirely dependent on livestock as a source of livelihood. For them, it's very difficult to cope up with such a loss. So what happens is that these angry farmers, that irate farmers, then go and throw stones at them, and actually it killed many of the snow leopards inside the livestock, trapped inside the livestock corrals. And so that is something that we have been. So anyway, I'll come to that. And so yes, since I had lost sheep and goats, when the villagers complained about these losses, I could empathize with them, because I have been on either side of the fence. I have seen the farmer's perspective, and I have now seen the conservationist perspective. I mean, I'm just trying to kind of bring these perspectives to one another. Conservationist perspective, the farmers, and the farmers perspectives to the conservationists. So in that sense, I'm really in it's a is the best of both worlds in many ways. Understand both the perspectives. So that is something that is helping me in putting in some conservation programs that have been very successful, about which I'll talk in a moment. So yes, this is how the snow leopard. I mean, the where it lives, and how it looks, and all the threats it is facing. And just in the context of other big cats, if I talk about the snow leopard, then the snow leopard cannot roar like the other big cats. That's the only difference. So it's been, at some point, it was placed under its own genus, Ansia, but now it's been clubbed with the others, the Panthera genus. And genetic studies have shown that snow leopards are the closest to tigers, and not that close to leopards, for example, relatively speaking. So that's very interesting in that sense. Yes, so this is how the snow leopard is known to the outside world. And if you talk about the conservation status, until very recently, till 2017, it was considered an endangered species. Today is not an endangered. It has been downgraded to an vulnerable species, and that's because that they were not very authentic information from certain pockets of its range about its population. So with that, currently it has a status of a vulnerable status at the IUCN uh, red list of the that's how they rank the status of these animals. So anyway, so that's all about the snow leopard, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have about the animal and its biology. And also, I told you a little bit about its ecology. Now, let me turn to some of the conservation interventions that we have put in place. So the Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust has been one of the most successful conservation organizations in the Himalayas, in the whole of Himalayas. This organization came into being in the year 2000, 2000 and formally registered in 2003 as part of the Snow Leopard Conservancy US, but it became an independent Indian organization in the year 2012. So currently, we do a lot of work to actually mitigate the threats to the snow leopard. So as I said, the conservancy itself came into existence because of this growing conflict between snow leopards and humans. As I said, the snow leopard gets inside livestock pens and kills a lot of sheep and goats, and so the Conservancy intervened by providing wire mesh to cover the roof of some of these open corrals that I told you that Ladakh is a very resource scarce region. So in remote areas, people don't have trees and uh, and materials to cover the roof of the livestock pen. So that's where the Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust was starting helping the local communities by covering the roof with these wire meshes and strengthening the doors and the door frames. And that resolves almost 95% of the livestock depredation inside the corrals. And 5% because sometimes people don't listen to our instructions. The stony wall and the wire mesh that we provide. And snow leopard has a very light body, and once its head is inside, it just squeezes through and gets inside and kills livestock. And so 5% because of that. Otherwise, it has been very successful. So we are continuing with that, and it has been one of our flagship programs because it's been so successful in reducing the livestock depredation inside corrals and thereby improving the attitude of people like me towards the snow leopard. Uh, so yes, that the building of snow leopard proof livestock corrals reduce livestock depredation inside corrals, but when it comes to killing of livestock in the higher pastures in the mountains, it continued. And so Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust wanted to eliminate that possibility as much as possible, the killing of livestock in the mountains by the snow leopard. And so that is when the conservancy really started thinking very seriously about other ways of helping local communities in generating livelihoods. And so tourism came to our rescue. And if you have heard about the tourism in Ladakh, it's been growing by leaps and bounds over the years. When Ladakh was first opened to tourism in the year 1974, we had about 530 tourists visiting us. Today, we get up to 350,000 tourists in a single year. I mean, just talking about pre-COVID. Of course, during COVID, it came to a screeching halt. But so, and it's continuing, more and more people coming now. And so, if you look at all the income from that growing tourism, most of the income was going to travel agents, hoteliers, and all the other people in the cities. But people in remote areas where there is a very high conflict between snow leopards and human, they did not get much. So sometimes when we went to some of these villages and talked to the villagers and asked them if they were benefiting from the growing tourists in Ladakh, they had a negative response. They said, we don't benefit from the growing tourism. We see these people, the tourists, and trekking the mountains, just passing by, and all we see. I mean, that's what they said. Uh, and all we see is a quote unquote pile of garbage in the end. So that was the view, their view about the growing tourism. So something needed to be changed there, and Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust saw an opportunity there to really distribute the income a little bit more equitably, and it started actually working on the promoting rural tourism through homestays. In fact, the Snow Leopard Conservancy India Trust is the first organization to pioneer the homestays in the Himalayas, the conservation linked homestays, mostly related to wildlife conservation. And it has been so successful that it is one of the best wildlife conservation models today in the country and elsewhere also. Like, a lot of other agencies and people have been emulating elsewhere, and it's been really working well. And it's really heartening to see people, farmers who used to, they'll go up in the mountains killing wolf pups and retaliatory killing snow leopard when it revenge killing snow leopards when they got inside livestock pens. Today, the same people are attracting these predators, these carnivores to their villages. So it cannot get better than that. It's really very heartening to see that. And the reason that they are doing that is that we also around the same time, a few years ago, we started working really hard towards promoting snow leopard tourism. So a lot of because there is this group of enthusiastic youth who have developed the skill to find the snow leopards in nature and showing them to tourists. We started promoting that, and tourists then combine the homestay experience with the snow leopard viewing experience. So it's been a win-win situation. Tourists come and stay with local people, and they go with the nature guides that we train as snow leopard spotters, and they go up in the mountains, spot the snow leopard and see the snow leopards. At the same time, these tourists also get to experience the local cultures. So it's really an experiential tourism that we have been promoting, and it's really working wonders. As I said, that many of the people look at the snow leopard. So basically, we turn the tables over a period of 15, 20 years. We converted a species that was a threat to their livelihood opportunities. Today, they look at the snow leopard as an asset, tourism asset. So today, the snow leopard is worth more alive than dead, actually, which was the situation some 15, 20 years ago. And so, yes, it has been very successful. And so it creates an economic opportunity. So we did not want to stop there. It obviously, with this income generation opportunity, that wall between snow leopards and people have that wall is gone, and so people are more receptive to ideas now. So we take the opportunity to really get closer to them and tell them a little bit more about the snow leopards, not just the economic incentives, but all the other incentives like the ecological benefits, ecologically how the snow leopard has been beneficial for people. And so let me talk about that. It would be, some of you might be also surprised that if I were to tell you that snow leopard can stop flooding. Many people ask me, they raise their eyebrows and ask me, how does that happen? So these are all ecological linkages. So what happens is that if the population, if the snow leopard goes extinct, then the population of all the mountain sheep and goats explodes. It will increase, their population will increase. And if that happens, then they will uh, eat all the small little herbs and plants on the mountain slopes and in the valleys. So with that, what happens? The soil becomes soft and friable, and you know that process. And so when that happens, then we have been seeing a lot of climate change. These days, we are getting a lot of rain during summer. Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear
Oh yeah.
you.
So there's something came on the screen. I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah,
So yes,
exactly.
we have a lot of gullies and this small little valleys here and there. So with a little bit of rain in this valley and that valley, all the valleys. So the rain to all
Dr.
kind of the
Namgil, sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
Uh, there have been receiving messages. People asking, will you be sharing any PowerPoint presentation of the view? Uh,
Oh, yeah. So I wish I could. I mean, the thing is that it's a Saturday, so I'm doing it from my laptop, and this does not. Let me say, do just some pictures, maybe.
yes, yes, for
Okay,
the
just a
audience to
moment.
have a
Okay,
view.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Just sorry for that. I mean, I didn't know like what your wishes and maybe. I mean, I think it'll be good if you can come and see the animal rather than looking at pictures. But anyway,
Exactly.
mm, just a moment. So can I share the screen now? I haven't used this. Just a moment.
Okay. Dhruv, can you make sir also one of the presenters
Yeah,
so that he
open share. Just a moment. Okay, okay. I saw it now. Okay. Mm, no, can you see that the screen?
yes, sir, it is.
Okay. Yeah. So here is a picture. Okay. No, I just found out there was a old presentation. So yeah, this is how this snow leopard looks like. I've just written there that we were established in year 2003. These are some of our the way we work, in three verticals: research, conservation, education. But anyway, I won't spend much time there. Um, so yeah, these are some. I don't know if you are familiar with the geography of Ladakh. Then we are, few divisions like Nubra, Changthang, Jungkook, Kargil,
Uh,
and all of that.
I,
But
I
anyway,
believe, sir, the slides aren't moving if you're
oh,
moving them. Okay. Can
okay.
it be on
I'm
the slideshow mode, sir, so that
yeah, yeah. That's what I uh, put on the slideshow. Can you see it now moving?
yeah, it's come to the predator proof livestock. Yeah, conservancy.
Okay.
Yes, established into
Yes, so this is, I mean, I think the pictures speaks louder than thousand words. Is that just look at this. This is how we kind of build some of these corals. So here you can see, they have no trees in the surroundings. So all these we provide these beams and the wire meshes to cover the roof. So it is. This is a snow leopard proof livestock corral that I was talking to, telling you about a little earlier. And then, yeah, these are the Himalayan homestays, some very picturesque valleys where tourists
uh,
come and, huh,
so sorry,
okay.
I think it's not moving.
Oh, it's
Others
not
can
here?
also confirm. Dhruv, can you confirm if the slides are moving?
I think it's on the same slide, so it's not moving.
Yeah, Snow Leopard
Oh, I
Conservancy
see.
India Trust. Yes.
Okay, just a moment then.
Yeah, it's now gone to eco cafes.
Is it moving now?
Yeah, sir, it's come to the eco cafes. Camera trapping. Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
it's moving. Yes.
it's moving. Okay, all right. So yeah, I was on this slide. So yeah, this is one of a typical homestays in a very picturesque valley where tourists come and stay with their family. And so the homestays were set up mostly with three objectives. One to give tourists an opportunity to learn about local cultures. A lot of tourists come to learn about local culture, and there cannot be a better way than spending time with the people, how they live on a day-to-day basis, and then local people get an income generation opportunity, and the profit and the income from these homestays helps in offsetting livestock loss to snow leopards. So it's a win-win situation. And these are the homestays, where women, especially women, run the homestays, and they provide all local dishes and local cuisine food, which the tourists enjoy, and of course, again, a cultural experience there. Look at this, the snow leopard. Sometimes you do camera trapping, is something that I was talking about some time ago. And camera trapping is the best way of actually estimating the snow leopard population, like many other elusive creatures on the planet. And we have been conducting camera traps in Ladakh. As I told you that earlier, that we have a population of about 300 individuals in Ladakh, but that's an guesstimate. We can get a more accurate sense of the numbers in Ladakh through the camera trapping, and these camera trap pictures. See how the snow leopards are marching down a slope. I mean, yeah, they're beautiful creatures. They walk along these ridge lines and walk along valley bottoms also. Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
okay, okay, yeah. So yeah, once in a while I hear a disturbance and then I have to repeat, if I kind of uh, if there is if you don't cannot hear me. Anyway, yeah. So these are some camera trap pictures, Dr. Jay Shankar, and I wish I had some other pictures. Maybe I'll kind of look through it later, and then I'll check that out. And so some of these homestays that I was telling you about, and we have these eco cafes along trekking trails. Uh, so what happens is a lot of tourists walk in these mountains, and sometimes the villagers want to set up something like this. It's called a parachute cafe, uh, and they sell all locally produced stuff there, local foods, and the another thing, sustainable way of doing things is that instead of selling bottled water, single-use plastic bottled waters, they boil water with solar energy and they filter and then they refill tourist water bottles. So it is again a very sustainable way of doing things, and sustainable way of serving tourists in these mountains. So it has been again complementing the homestays. It's mostly run by women, so it's a women empowerment initiative also. Women oftentimes become the economically independent. Otherwise, they have to depend on their husbands for petty cash, and so these actually generate some petty cash, for some income for them, and so it has been very successful again. And then we have been training these people in making various traditional arts and crafts. So you can see some wooden horses, yak, and similarly they make also wooden snow leopards. And in the lower panel, this guy is actually making an soft toy of an Asiatic ibex, which is a very important prey species of the snow leopard, and it's a very unique technique. This is not a traditional one, but people love it. So what happens is that how they make it is that you take a chunk of wool, and there is a special needle that we have been getting until very recently from Germany. Now we can also get it from there are companies that are making these needles in India. So they keep on jabbing that the chunk of wool with this special needle and becomes solid, and they shape out all the different parts of the body, and they assemble all the body parts, and then you have a beautiful soft toy of an Asiatic ibex, which tourists want to take them back as souvenirs. So it's been a very again a very important income generation opportunity for these people. Yeah, so that's another aspect of some of the conservation programs that we're doing. And then, as I was telling you earlier, that we also train nature guides in villages, especially unemployed youth, who have no other opportunities. So there's a lot of urban drift also, actually, youth coming to the town and city areas because they don't have enough income generation opportunity in the villages. So we have been trying to stem this urban drift through training, nature guide training. So youth stay in the villages and generate income there. So again, that has been very successful. And snow leopard tourism is, as I was telling you a little bit earlier, that this is something that we have been taking very seriously, and it's a perfect opportunity to really uh, gel the cultural experience with the natural snow leopard seeing experience. People come to see the snow leopard and stay with local families, and it's a beautiful experience for them. And of course, as we get more and more tourists, and it's only going to grow now. The other thing that I want to tell you about is that currently the composition of tourists is changing. It's very dynamic. So initially, we would get a lot of foreign tourists who wanted to trek in the mountains, but these days we are getting a lot of domestic tourists, especially after the Three Idiots, and that is the story, I think, a widely known story, that after Three Idiots, every other Indian uh, wants to visit Ladakh to see the Pangong Lake and all of that. But yeah, so whatever, I think the garbage is becoming a major issue here, and this is something that is an initiative to manage the garbage in some of the homestay villages. So what we do is, on the left picture, you can see that all these tar drums that we collect from all the roadsides, which are discarded by the border roads organization, and sometimes we also collect them from their camps. So this has again been a very good thing, because what happens is that when these tar drums are lying on the roadsides, and there are tar left inside the drums, and Ladakh, we have very intense sun during summer, and the melted tar in these drums become death traps for many smaller, lesser known species like the like lizards and the insects and all of that. So we collect them, clean the drums, burn the tar out, and then we paint them really nicely, and then let the villagers uh, use these as dustbins. So it's a really valuing some of these waste otherwise, and using repurposing them as dustbins. So again, this is a great initiative. A lot of people have been applauding us for this, and it's working perfectly well in all the homestay villages. So that's our garbage management initiative, and we feel responsible for some of the garbage in the village, because we are trying to attract tourists to the villages, and we are creating this system to manage the garbage in the villages. So some challenges, of course, these are very remote villages. You can see that how sometimes we need to crawl through to get to the very inaccessible place in the winter. A lot of snow packs, and it's difficult to get to those places where we have the homestays, and these are crossing rivers and streams. A lot of challenges, language barriers and all. I mean, these are some issues that the homestay owners have been facing. A lot of people currently, especially, there are a lot of agencies who are trying to establish homestays, which not necessarily put aside a conservation, some sort of a conservation fee. So one of our characteristic features of our homestays is that 10% of the proceeds go towards a village conservation fund, which the villagers use for various purposes, like whitewashing. There's a tradition of whitewashing of certain religious structures, so maintenance of monuments, and cleaning of trekking trails, plantation, and a lot of other things. So that 10% is actually put aside as a environmental fee, and the villagers that use that for different things. So yeah, just to end here, before all these programs, before we intervened, people always pointed their fingers at the snow leopards. It's good. It's very bad. It's killing our livestock. It's a real threat to our livelihood and all of that. But now they are so happy with this tourism program that people from all over the world come and share news and views at them, and it brings income generation opportunity, and with that they can send their kids to better schools, and yeah, as I said, that women are pretty happy, because most of the homestays are run by women. So yeah, it's a win-win situation. I would just end here. There are a lot of things to talk about, but I would address them, maybe, I think, while I take some questions and answer them. Yes, Dr. Jaishankar and Noah. So I'll just stop here. And there's
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
more to come. Thank
Over
you
to
so much.
Dhruv for moderation.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for your talk about snow leopards. I learned a lot about snow leopards, and more than that, I learned a lot about the Snow Leopard Conservatory Trust of India, and I would really hope to volunteer with them some way if I can. Either way,
Please.
now I'd like to open the floor for questions, if anybody has.
Students can unmute and ask your questions directly to the resource person, or those who have access to the chat box can also type your questions to the chat box. CBZ1024 had raised your hand. If you have any queries, you can go ahead. As they prepare to ask, let me also get some clarifications, Dr. Namgel. Uh,
Yeah.
what's the count now with all these initiatives? Where does it come around of the
Oh,
snow
the
leopards?
count of the snow leopards, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So see, Dr. Jaishankar, that still, I mean, there are a lot of obstacles and challenges, while conducting this. As I said, that it's a very, snow leopard occurs in some of the most inaccessible areas, so it's not that easy. And currently, we have been able to cover some 5,000 square kilometers, and we counted some 39 snow leopards in this area. And so if you extrapolate that to Ladakh, is a pretty huge area geographically speaking. It's about 85,000 odd square kilometers of area, and if you extrapolate that, I think it's much more than that 300 that we are citing currently. And the wildlife department and some other agencies also have been doing camera traps, but those results are not known yet. And so our efforts has yielded these many snow leopards in the last few years. And as I said, that it's really difficult to set these cameras in these remote and inaccessible areas. Sometimes it's completely so. I mean, there is a scientific methodology to carry out this work, and you have to grid the region, and then you have to select random cells. So sometimes the cells are in such areas that it's just difficult to get to those places, and takes a lot of time to set the cameras. And plus other challenges, camera traps in Bangalore and all the other places and plains is easy because the batteries last pretty good. But here, because of the low temperatures, the batteries don't last that long, and so we have been having all sort of challenges. And so currently, yeah, that's the status, and that's another bout of camera trapping that we had conducted last year. And the result of that is we're still analyzing it. So yeah, slowly we are doing it. It's the progress has been piecemeal, but yeah, we are trying to get there someday. So that's the status now in terms of numbers, with using some really good technology. including the camera trapping and the genetic sampling. Is that's another way to do that, but we haven't done that yet, and that is something that we are currently exploring, including this eDNA and techniques like that.
Thank you, sir. I believe there's a
Yeah.
question on the chat box.
Uh-huh.
Uh, is there any particular season when snow leopards are easily spotted?
Oh yes, definitely. That's the winter season from December to March, and the reason that is easy to see in that period is that it snows, and it's very easy to locate the park marks and prints, paw prints of the snow leopards. And the other factor is that the snow leopard comes down following their prey species, which also come down because the higher reaches are covered with thicker level snow, and so they come down and following. And so it's also the period when it's the mating season for the snow leopard, and during that period there's a lot of activity, and it's easier to see the snow leopard. So yes, winter is the season to come for snow leopard viewing.
Yes, sir. So the slide that you have put talks again of another content of how the threat has converted into an asset.
Yeah.
With regards to the conflict and compensation that we
Mm.
widely speak whenever there is an encounter or a conflict or coexistence of
Yeah.
this or predators or other animals, even the human elephant kind of conflict. How
Yeah.
has that changed? What is your view in that regard of the conflict and the compensation part?
Yes, so Dr. Jayashankar, that we had an compensation even today. Now, currently there's a compensation scheme, but the problem now they are trying to improve the system a bit. But in the past, the major problem with the compensation scheme was mostly the shortage of staff with the wildlife department and the authorities to really confirm the cause of the death in many cases, because these claims are coming from very remote areas, and oftentimes in those villages wherever they lose livestock, oftentimes some people who have a lot of contacts in the government circles, and the most vociferous people would get the compensation because they have contacts and they know how to file for it and all. And oftentimes the genuine people who lost livestock did not get compensation, and it was very cumbersome also to go to different government departments, and people would also complain of actually and the compensation was, the value was not very high also. It was just a fraction of the real value of the animal. So for all these reasons, the compensation in the past did not work that well, and it hasn't. I don't know currently, the after Ladakh becoming a union territory, now they have resumed that the compensation, and so maybe they will improve the system. But otherwise, compensation is really not a long-term solution. Somebody loses animal and gets compensated, and loses again and get compensated. So it's a kind of a never-ending cycle, and there's no incentive for the person to or person to improve the herding practices, for example, lose the minimum, because he's getting that compensation. He's going to be just ignorant and careless if he keeps on getting compensation. So instead of that, actually we have started something called a community controlled livestock insurance program, under which the local people, the villagers, take charge of the whole thing. And so basically, they collect premium per animal like in a regular insurance program, and then whatever they collect in the form of premium per animal. Suppose if they collect 50,000 for all the animals in the form of premiums, we provide a matching fund of 50,000, and they have a 1 lakh rupees corpus which they deposit in a bank. And it's their money. We don't have any say in that. It's entirely run by them, and so that money keeps on growing in the bank, and people have an incentive. If they don't lose any livestock, or that money is there, they can use it for a lot of other things. So there's an incentive not to lose any livestock under that system. And it's there's no room for cheating, because everyone knows, it's their money. Everyone knows how an animal gets killed. So that has been working fairly good, actually. It's been very efficient and very effective, actually, in many of the villages where we have tried. And that is something that we are currently expanding, and that's something that I didn't cover during my talk, because there are other few other programs that we do, but I mean, we have limited time to really get into all of that. Yeah, so currently that's the status when it comes to conflict and compensation and on. And definitely the level of conflict has come down, especially in these areas, simply because of the income generation opportunity. Earlier, they looked at the snow leopard as you mentioned, that it's a big threat. Now it's an asset, so why somebody would want to kill an animal that is so important for them for generating income, so it's been very effective there. So conflict level definitely has come down. People's attitude towards the snow leopard has improved, and yeah, so they want to conserve the snow leopard for these factors. And now, as I said, now they also understand the ecological importance, the ecosystem services that it provides. People are also are conversant with that, and so they want to conserve the snow leopard even more. So yeah, that's the status.
I believe there's a curious question on, has there been any observation conducted on a particular snow leopard to know about them in more details?
Yes, so there have been efforts, radio collaring and all. Those studies are happening not here in Ladakh. Recently, the authorities had started a program of radio collaring and all. So again, as I said, that I mean that result is not known. But elsewhere in the snow leopard range, of course, uh, mother and cubs were followed to look at, at what age the snow leopard sorry, at what age the snow leopard cubs leave their mothers, separate from their mothers, and all of that, and where they go, and whether there's a greater dispersal rate in males compared to females, female cubs, and all of that, and which have yielded some very good and interesting results. So yes, there have been studies like that, but not so much in Ladakh. Elsewhere, like Mongolia and some of these countries.
Yes. Also, someone asked, is the spotting of snow leopards seasonal?
Spotting, yes, of course. But as I said, that all the tourists who want to see the snow leopard come in the winter. So winter is the season to look for them, because it is relatively easily seen compared to summer and other months. So yes, it is seasonal, and I, I mean, that's not to discount the fact that you can see snow leopard during the other seasons also, but it's fairly difficult, because they go pretty high up, and and we don't go that high to, to, and then of course, I mean, they have a larger territory, because snow-free territory, and they move around quite a bit, and so it's difficult to see in other seasons. So yeah, winter is the spotting season.
Yes, sir. And also on the note of spotting, someone asks, what is the probability of spotting a snow leopard? And also, is it only exclusive to tourists who go trekking in the mountains?
Yes, of course. So you have to go actively seeking it, otherwise you don't see them just walking a lot along a trekking trail, for example. And the spotting rate, if you ask me the percentage, I mean, with some of our uh, trips, on our trips, it's up to 90-95% uh, success rate.
Wow. Also, another question, sir. What is your favorite fact about?
What is the favorite fact?
Yes, sir, for you personally.
What is the favorite fact about snow leopard?
Yeah, that's the complete
Okay,
question. Yeah.
okay. Sorry, I didn't get it. Yeah. Yeah. So favorite fact, I think there are several. So one, I told you that it cannot roar, and And another, I mean, there are a lot of stories also. I mean, I don't know whether they are. We need to validate those stories. And I mean, it would be interesting for you. These are not facts, by the way. We have to kind of authenticate them. Or sometimes, when the snow leopard is preying and it's ambushing animals, sometimes it just clings itself around a bush, like a not a very big bush. I mean, yeah, smaller than its body, and so it just clings to it and roll down a slope. And so the animals, the livestock would just see it bush rolling down, but basically a snow leopard is clung to that, and that's how it hunts. Sometimes that's what they say. The other thing is about the tail. It's a beautiful, as I said, that bushy tail that it wraps around during winter to keep itself warm. And again, some people have been saying that sometimes the snow leopard carries the carcass after it makes a kill. It just carries the carcass on its back uh, with the tail wrapped around it as a rope. So there's things like that. Yeah. So facts and both facts and stories, and which we need to authenticate.
Yes. So also I
Uh,
had a
so good
question.
evening, sir.
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
No, go ahead, please, please. I'll
Yeah, I read somewhere that Indian leopards, common Indian leopards, are known to travel very long distances, especially if they have to migrate. So I was wondering whether that's similar for snow leopards and how that affects calculating the numerical data on them.
How it affects? Sorry, I missed that.
How it affects collecting numerical data on them, like numerical data of snow leopards in India for
Because of
example.
the high mobility, you mean?
Yeah, do they
Okay.
migrate then?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, they do move around quite a bit, especially in places like Mongolia and some of these flat countries, like on the Tibetan Plateau and Mongolia and all. Sometimes they walk several kilometers, but a few kilometers every day. They do move around, but then I think if you mean by numerical data, a person observing them and trying to collect information, for example, its behavior and all, that's very difficult. Uh, you can get all these information only through radio callers and that sort of thing. The movement and the range also. For example, the range depends on where you are talking about where you're talking about. If, for example, in Ladakh, the home range, typical home range has been estimated at 35 to 40 square kilometer, but the same snow leopard in Mongolia and some of these very flat areas, they have estimated home ranges of even up to 450 square kilometers. So it varies a lot, and yes, they move around quite a bit, especially in these open areas where the prey species are also scattered, and then they have to walk around looking for potential prey. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Did.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. And there was another question somebody was asking before you.
Alan, you wanted to ask a question? You can unmute and ask. I believe he has a power cut, so he won't be able to ask. If there are any other queries, anybody else wants to unmute and ask the last question? Yes, anybody?
So if you don't mind me, I actually had one more question.
Absolutely. Go ahead. No, I don't.
So yes, sir. So you talked a lot about the conservation efforts of snow leopards in India. What are the
Yeah.
conservation efforts like in, say, Mongolia or China or in other regions?
So yes, there are conservation efforts in all these countries at varying intensity and level and all. So all the challenges in these different countries are also slightly different. Actually, if you talk about the threats to snow leopards in Ladakh, then it has always been angry farmers killing snow leopards that get inside livestock pens and kill livestock. So that has been the single most important threat until recently. But there are now emerging issues like climate change, and more recently, the free-ranging dogs. That is something that has emerged as a very important threat to snow leopards and many other species in the Himalayas. And in places like Mongolia, there's a major threat from mining activities in certain areas and all of that. Yes, so there are different organizations are doing conservation work in different parts of the snow leopard range. For example, the Snow Leopard Trust is pretty active in Mongolia, trying to understand some of the ecological issues as well as threats and conservation uh, prospects and all of that. And in China, there are several Chinese organizations that are active, and similarly in Panthera, for example, we work a lot with them in Ladakh and planning to do so elsewhere. So, and Panthera has been working in countries like Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and all these countries. Yeah, so there are conservation efforts in all the countries of the snow leopard range in at different levels with and different level of efforts.
So good evening. Small question.
Please.
So this is summing up all of these questions where people asked, is this seasonal, where we can spot. So I have this small doubt. So what happens to these snow leopards during the summer season? Like, is their food habits kind of interrupted, or is it like lowered? Is their movement come down because of the sun? So what happens to these species? Like, does the temperature have an effect on them? Like, hearing the name snow leopard, okay, I could somewhere conclude, okay, they need the snow to at least be there. But does summer and the other weathers seasons, does this have an effect on the lifestyle of the snow leopards? Sir? Has there been any observations made like that?
Yeah, so Alan, if I've understood your question, uh, what happens is that, as I said, that you can see snow leopards more during the winter because they come down tracking their prey. The prey species come down because the higher ridges or the higher mountains are covered with a lot of snow. So at the lower altitude, there's less snow, and so the prey species like the Asiatic ibex and blue sheep and all, which are ungulates, mountain sheep and goats, they come down. So snow leopards follow them. They come down. The snow leopard also come down, and plus the mating activity, and then easier to spot the see the snow leopard paw prints and all on the snow. So during summer, as I said, that during summer, all the snow in the higher reaches also melt away, and so the snow leopard has a greater territory, snow-free territory during summer. So they have a larger territory to move around, and so that's why it's difficult to spot during the summer. Otherwise, yes, if you talk about the effect of temperature on its movement and all of that, definitely it has. And people have been talking about the moving of snow leopard upslope, shifting its habitat use upslope because of the warming temperature. And of course, I mean, snow leopard needs a pretty cold temperature, and so it is moving upslope. And that's what I mean. There's no conclusive study really telling us about that. But yeah, that's the general perception that they're moving up. And there have been actually studies looking at the tree line in some parts of the Himalayas. So the tree line is uh, slowly shifting upwards, and so snow leopard cannot survive in the forested areas, and so it needs alpine and open areas. So, and obviously, if that happens, if the upper slopes are covered with trees and vegetation, then it has to move further up. So yeah, I mean, talking about climate change and impact of warming temperature and all of that in snow leopard, that's how it works. But yeah, seeing of snow leopard is easier in winter for that reason.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. And now I would like to invite Dr. Jaishankar to give us the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dhruv. It was a wonderful session. The beginning itself was informative. The very purpose of having the series on conserving the threatened has met with a good requirement, a very good speaker to begin with in Dr. Namgel. Sir, thank you for sparing your time to address our students as part of this webinar, the first one, as I said, in the series. Thanks to the initiatives that you are heading, the Snow Leopard Conservancy India, uh, all the initiatives including women empowerment, uh, employment, tourism. So there is that fact that is displayed there, how threat is converting into asset, the revenue generation initiative
Yeah.
in the region. You also mentioned about Amir Khan's Three Idiots movie and how there is this flood of tourists coming in. Hope they stay within their limits and not create nuisance to an area that is already hosting, having this threatened species. I believe wisdom prevails there, revenue generation on one part, and also this should not be an addition in terms of creating menace. Yes, rightly, as you pointed out all through your talk, this is a win-win situation. I hope the number of the leopards increases. All your initiatives works on both the side, both on the humans, the local populace, and also the threatened species, the snow leopard. Thank you for all that information about the snow leopard and patiently answering the questions from the participants, and also considering our request to share the PowerPoint, which did value add to the initiatives that you are taking there in Ladakh. With this, I also thank the management for giving us this opportunity for the Natural Science Association to conduct such innovative initiatives. Uh, for the principal, Dr. Victor Lobo, the Dean, Dr. Beatrice of the School of Life Sciences, the staff members of the Department of Zoology, all the core members of the Natural Science Association, and the student coordinators. NSA believes in empowering students in organizing such initiatives. Four such coordinators were put in charge to conduct this particular webinar: Noah, Sumant, Dhruv, and Saklin. Thank you for all four of you in coordinating and starting the series on the threatened species. Thank you, sir, once again for accepting our invitation to be the first speaker in the series of conserving the threatened species. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
And
thanks so much, Dr. Jai Shankar, Noah, and all the other organization or organizers. And I wish you all luck with your studies. And let's hope that we have all our ecosystems intact in the mountains, and beautiful settings for you to visit and have a wonderful time in the mountains. I invite you, all of you, to Ladakh and the Himalayas. And yeah, I hope that we would opportunities for further interactions. Thank you so much, everyone.
thank you. Thank you, all the participants. We have had participants from different states, different colleges and universities, staff, and mainly students. So the feedback form is posted on the chat box. Please ensure that you fill in the details to get your participation certificates. Yeah. With that, we come to the end of the first talk in the series, and hope to see you all again with other series talks in the series. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.